Next day, T astonished them all. He was late at the rendezvous, and the voting for that day's exploit took place without him. At Blackie's suggestion, the gang was to disperse in pairs, take buses at random, and see how many free rides they could be snatched from unwary conductors. The operation was to be carried out in pairs to avoid cheating. They were drawing lots for their companions when T arrived. "Where have you been, T?" Blackie asked. "You can't vote now. You know the rules." "I've been there," T said. He looked at the ground as though he had thoughts to hide. "Where?" "At Old Misery's." "At Old Misery's," Blackie said. There was nothing in the rules against it, but he had a sensation that T was treading on dangerous ground. He asked hopefully, "Did you break in?" "No, I rang the bell." "And what did you say?" "I said I wanted to see his house." "What did he do?" "He showed it to me." "Pinch anything?" "No." "What did you do it for then?" The gang had gathered round. It was as though an impromptu court were about to form and try some case of deviation. T said, "It's a beautiful house," and still watching the ground, meeting no one's eyes, he licked his lips, first one way, then the other. "What do you mean, a beautiful house?" Blackie asked with scorn. "It's got a staircase 200 years old like a corkscrew. Nothing holds it up." "What do you mean, nothing holds it up? Does it float?" "It's to do with opposite forces," Old Misery said. "What else?" "There's paneling, 200 years old." "Is Old Misery 200 years old?" Someone laughed suddenly and then was quiet again. The meeting was in a serious mood. For the first time since T had strolled into the car park and joined the gang on the first day of the school holidays, his position was in danger. It only needed a single use of his real name, and the gang would be at his heels. "What did you do it for?" Blackie asked. He had no jealousy. He was anxious to retain T in the gang, if he could. It was the word beautiful that worried him. That belonged to a class word that you could still see parodied by a man wearing a top hat and a monocle, with a hee-haw accent. He was tempted to say, "My dear Trevor, old chap," and unleash his hellhounds. "If you'd broken in," he said sadly, "that indeed would have been an exploit worthy of the gang." "This was better," T said. "I found out things." He continued to stare at his feet, not meeting anybody's eye, as though he were absorbed in some dream he was unwilling or ashamed to share. "What things?" "Old Misery is going to be away all day and over the weekend." Blackie said with relief, "You mean we could break in and pinch things?" somebody asked. Blackie said, "Nobody's going to pinch things. Breaking in, that's a good idea, isn't it? We don't want any court stuff." "I don't want to pinch anything," T said. "I've got a better idea." "What is it?" T raised his eyes, as gray and disturbed as the drab August day. "We'll pull it down," he said. "We'll destroy it." Blackie gave a single hoot of laughter and then fell quiet, daunted by the serious, implacable gaze. "What'd the police be doing all the time?" he said. "They'd never know. We'd do it from the inside. I found a way in," he said with a sort of intensity. "We'd be like worms, don't you see, in an apple. Then we'd come out again. There'd just be nothing there. No staircase, no panels, nothing but just walls. Then we'd make the walls fall down somehow." "We'd go to prison," Blackie said. "Who's to prove? And anyway, we wouldn't have pinched anything," he added without the smallest flicker of glee. "There wouldn't be anything to pinch after we finished." "There wouldn't be time," Blackie said. "I've seen housebreakers at work." "There are 12 of us," T said. "We'd organize. None of us know how." "I know," T said. He looked across at Blackie. "Have you got a better plan?" "The gang's got to vote." "Put it up then," Blackie said uneasily. "It's proposed that tomorrow and Monday we destroy Old Misery's house. Who's in favor?" T said, "It's carried." It was the end of Blackie's leadership. He went away to the back of the car park and began to kick a stone, dribbling it this way and that. Beyond, paying no more attention to him than to a stranger, the gang had gathered around T.